Call to order this regular Board of Directors meeting for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, February 7, 2023. Roll call.
Blair.
Here.
Wiley.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
At this time, if you all will please stand with me as Director Hunt leads us in prayer, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask that anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that at this time. Thank you for that. First on our agenda is the public input time. At this time, anyone that would like to speak to the board on an item that is not on our regular agenda. Yes, sir. If you would come to the podium and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. Yeah.
My name is Michael Reynolds. I live at 502 Meadowbrook Circle here in Siloam Springs. And what I would like to talk to you guys about tonight is the baseball program. Unfortunately, there is...
Mr. Reynolds, I'm sorry, but that is on our agenda?
Is it?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
It is.
I apologize.
And absolutely, whenever that comes around, please come back. Thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone that would like to speak to an item that is on our consent agenda? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item A, workshop minutes, January 17, 2023. Item B, regular meeting minutes, January 17, 2023. Item C, dedication of utility easements and right-of-way, 22384 Davidson Road. D, dedication of utility easements and right-of-way, 3001 Waukesha Road. Item E, dedication of utility easements, 1510 East Main Street. Item F, resolution 06-23, special use development permit, short-term rental, 413 South Madison Street. Item G, resolution 07-23, special use development permit, short-term rental, 731 East Cypress Court. Item H, resolution 08-23, special use development permit, short-term rental, 617 South Maxwell Street. Item I, resolution 11-23, NWARPC Carbon Reduction Program grant application for the Elgin Street Sidewalk extension. That is all of our consent agenda. Directors, is there any item that you would like to have pulled for further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, David.
Letter B and letter I.
B and I. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm not asking this to be pulled, just a question. On F, it shows 413 South Madison as the address, but I show here on the paperwork it says at one point 617 South Madison. I think it looks like maybe they just mixed F and H in this one spot, but I didn't know. Just thought I'd
Megan, can
bring that
you
up.
give us some clarity on that, please?
Megan Thomas, Planner 1. 413 South Madison Street is the correct address for it. That must have been a mistype. Is that in the staff report?
Yes.
Okay. 413 South Madison should be the correct address.
Thought so, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Is there anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with items B and I removed?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Director Allen, let's start with item B, please.
B, yeah. The meeting minutes, I did not feel reflected what I had said in my director comments, so I transcribed them and would like to add this to the minutes, please.
You have something that you want to give to Renee, or
Yeah,
would you?
yeah, I
Okay.
was just going to leave it here until after. I
Okay.
hand it.
Okay, all right, very
And
good.
Letter I just had a question for the administrator.
Sure.
If this does not get approved, are we still required to spend the entire 100% of the money? This is the 80-20.
Right, this is the approval of the application, so all this does is gives us the approval to go apply.
Right.
So if we don't get the money, then we wouldn't,
Okay.
we would have to come back, if we were to do the project, we would have to come back and ask for the board
I
for
didn't
100%
know.
of the cost.
I didn't know if we would have to be locked in to still move forward with it by voting this tonight.
No,
So,
the
okay.
voting of this is just the approval to submit the application.
Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address item I? If not, then we will go back to item B and ask if there is a motion to approve those regular meeting minutes with the amendment.
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen, Carroll,
Yes.
Blair, Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is the item I, which is the resolution for the application for the grant. Do I have a motion to approve item I?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. We will now move into our regularly scheduled items, and before we move into this, I would just like to remind the board and to let the public know that at the last board meeting, our board of directors did approve amended rules of order and procedures of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors. And one of the changes was whenever there is an item presented, staff will come and give their overview and their recommendation. At that time, it will come back to the board for the board's discussion, and then we will move back to the public for their comment and questions, and then it will finally then come back to the board for their further comments and for their motions. So that changes a little bit, rather than it going to the public right after the staff, it will come to the board and then back to the public. So everyone is aware of that change. So the next would be contracts and approvals. Resolution 04-23, contract prosecuting attorney, 2023 budget amendment for $10,839. Philip?
Madam Mayor and Board, the city's prosecuting attorney, Mr. David Bailey, has been contracted with the city since 2002. And the last time his contract was renewed was in 2014, and it was renewed for an indefinite term. At that time, in 2014, the salary was just over $29,000 annually, and the contract includes an annual increase based on CPI. And so as of 2023, the contract has grown to just under $36,600. In late December of last year, Mr. Bailey contacted staff and requested to have the city consider an amendment or an increase in his contract to $48,000 annually based on an increase in caseload. The contract that you have in front of you is basically written exactly the same as the current contract. The only change is the difference in the amount. It also includes the annual CPI adjustment. If you approve the amended contract, we originally had just over $37,000 in the 2023 budget. So if you approve the contract, increasing it to $48,000, it'll be an increase of $10,839 to the budget. Mr. Bailey is here tonight, and I would ask him to address the board to detail the increase in caseload and to be available for any questions. Mr. Bailey?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, as Philip said, and as most of us probably know, the court system has gotten, over the last nearly 21 years I've done this job, has gone exponentially large. I mean, just our police department has grown, our city's grown, and as our city grows, our police grow, there's more tickets. Just to give y'all a quick example of what I'm talking about, the end of this month, the 28th, we have a 77-page plea discovery docket, and that's after a 7-page trial docket. So I don't know exactly when Judge Anglin and I and the court staff's going to get home, but I expect it's going to be late. And you know, is it that way every week? No, thankfully no. Or else I probably wouldn't even I wouldn't give you a price. I'd just quit. But thankfully it's not that way every week, but it's growing. And just another example, in December on the trial docket date, it was 60-something pages. 2 months prior in October was 50-something pages. So it's growing. And, you know, the increase that I'm asking for is honestly the least I can do it for, just and not lose money in my business. And so, frankly, I love the job so much, I'm probably still underbidding it, to be quite honest and frank. I think the fact that I've done it so long and the fact that I enjoy doing it and have a passion for it and passion for the city, I think probably blinds me a little bit to the economics of the reality of the situation. But that being said, I'm willing to do it for that price, and I hope y'all agree that that's a fair price, and I appreciate your consideration. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but otherwise that's my position.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
So, board, any questions, comments for Mr. Bailey? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to have a comment or a question on this particular item? There being none, board, I would ask then for a motion to approve Resolution 0423 for the increase.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Bam. And I would love to stay, but I have 2 dogs that I got from the vet that they're kind of groggy. They've been in the vet all day, so I'm going to get them on home if that's okay.
Absolutely.
But thank y'all so much. I do appreciate you, and I look forward to many more years of serving the city. It's a city that I love, and we're growing, and that's a good thing. But it's busy.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank y'all. Appreciate you.
Next is item K, which is purchase Public Works Department, Street Division, 2023 John Deere 85G excavator, Stribling equipment for $140,891.13. Dennis?
Madam Mayor, Board, Dennis Kendi, Street Department Superintendent, bring a recommendation before you guys this evening to purchase.
Dennis, if I could have you pull that mic a little closer to you, please, so we can get that. Thank you, sir.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you.
right. Bring before you guys a recommendation to purchase a John Deere 85G excavator from Stribling Equipment for the amount of $140,891.13. This is a budgeted item, and the staff is here for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Board, questions for Dennis? There being none, is there anyone in the audience that would have a public comment or question about this purchase? If there is not, Board, I would ask for a motion to approve purchase for the Public Works Department.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is item L, which is the Youth Sports Contract Amendment, Boys and Girls Club of Western Benton County. Don?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Board, Don Clark, Community Development Director. Before you tonight for your consideration is an amendment for the youth sports contract with the Boys and Girls Club of Western Benton County. The Siloam Springs Youth Baseball Program, or SSYB, has run youth baseball in Siloam Springs for children ages 4 through 18 for a number of years. The Siloam Springs Youth Baseball leases the complex from the city, and they have a lease that is set to expire. And I want to make a correction. I think in the memo it says February 2nd. It actually expires on February 18th. After the past 2 seasons, city staff has been contacted by members of the public about expressing concerns about instability within the organization and the quality of the service offered, amongst other things. In October of 2022, city staff requested financial reports from the Siloam Springs Youth Baseball Program as specified in their lease agreements and have not been provided to date. Staff made numerous attempts to contact SSYB board in the intervening time and received no replies. SSYB seems to have undergone many changes, and at the time of this report appeared not to be able to administer youth baseball for the 2023 season. The Boys and Girls Club of Western Benton County offers a variety of youth sports in Siloam Springs, and we feel provide high quality. Staff met with the club during this time to discuss the possibility of them providing youth baseball for the 2023 season, mainly because not hearing back from SSYB, we wanted to have a plan just in case we got into this juncture. The proposed contract amendment with the Boys and Girls Club will be a stopgap to allow the 2023 season to take place. For the 2023 season, ages 3 and 4 age group would be organized by Parks and Recreation and play under the itty bitty model that we're proposing to play that under the model of itty bitty as we do with soccer and basketball. The club will organize and run regular baseball seasons for the ages of 5 through 12. City staff will work with both the club and the school district to put together a plan for ages 13 to 18 age group. From my understanding and talking to the high school baseball coach and a few others across the region, that's a number, an age group that's numbers have declined regardless of where they are in Northwest Arkansas for a number of different reasons. In the past, this age group has started after the high school baseball season, mainly because the high school uses the one regulation size field we have for the age group. This collective group would discuss possibility of having the signups happen sooner and try to start the season a little bit sooner using other city facilities to do so. At the end of the 2023 season, staff proposes that we would then send out surveys and host public meetings to come up with options of the best way to move forward with youth baseball. Again, this proposal with the Boys and Girls Club is not permanent. We're proposing it to be a temporary solution. After having those discussions and getting those surveys, staff will then bring that to the board for their direction and which way they would like to proceed. At this time, it is kind of difficult to project the cost for what it would cost the Boys and Girls Club to administer the program. So it could result in a budget amendment being brought back to you at a later date for those services. Staff stands ready for any questions.
Thank you, Don. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Betsy.
didn't we get the financials this week from SSYB?
I believe a email was forwarded to me of a financial statement, but not an audited financial is what we asked for and what is requested in their lease.
What's the difference between what they sent and an audit?
From what I understand, it'd be similar to the audit that we get from the Boys and Girls Club, since we contract services with them. In this case, with them being a smaller entity, it will probably be a CPA that would look over their books and certify an opinion that everything is correct, and then being presented to us.
That all, Betsy?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, yes. Don?
do we require a certified audit from the American Legion and Main Street and Chamber of Commerce and any other organization?
Not in those service contracts, no.
Well, you just compared that to Boys and Girls Club, and we give money to Boys and Girls Club. This is only a lease.
Correct.
This is not a service contract. This is a lease agreement. So I'm surprised that an audit is required to sign a lease. We have other leases, and I'm not sure, do we require that on other leases? Did we have that requirement with Fat Tire when we leased the old post office? I'm asking, I don't know.
No, we did not.
Seems like an odd request for a lease. I was just following up on what Betsy had brought up. So.
Just 2 years ago, when the lease was renewed, it was included in that lease that the board approved.
Oh, so it was added. That was the first time that the audit.
I can't tell you it was the first time it was added, but it's a requirement in that lease because of I assume because of the money collected and the money going out. I don't know if it was the first time it was added or not. I just know it's in the current lease.
Any questions, David? Is that it?
Oh, no,
Yeah,
I just
okay.
that was the only one I was.
Anyone else? If not,
I do have one
yes.
other question.
Sure.
Don, in terms of the Boys and Girls Club taking this over, will Boys and Girls Club be mowing the fields, or is Parks going to do it, or
It's good.
volunteers, or what?
Great question. So the lease we had with Siloam Springs Youth Baseball was a land lease, and they had their own equipment, and they would then maintain the fields. Under this, the Boys and Girls Club does not have that equipment, and so we would be maintaining the fields during the season. Parks and Recreation would.
Okay. So what happens if you have mowed the field earlier in the week and then you get a rain on Friday and all of a sudden the grass is out there and popping up? Are you able to get somebody to mow before a game?
Yep. Yes, sir. That's our proposal, as well as we would permanently paint the foul lines from the grass to the fence as standard in other baseball leagues. Then on the day of the game, the league would then, or the coaches would then do the chalk boxes. But yes, sir, we've thought through that and have a plan in place.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Betsy.
My understanding, one of the issues has been, and I've heard lots from both sides, is that the mowing for the Boys and Girls Club has not been kept up with, like the softball fields and all of that, and that's a concern because now we're adding a lot more to that.
To my knowledge, we've not heard that complaint directed to us. We drag and rake the fields and would do the same there and mow them. To be honest with you, these fields are located in a floodplain, which is probably why it was donated to the city. And so there are challenges in the early spring season of when we get water and it gets out of the creek. Those fields, softball fields in particular, actually go underwater. So wouldn't be surprised that that's sometimes been challenging, but from what I understand, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I have not received any complaints. I'm not sure if you have as the Boys and Girls Club about condition of the field, but there's something we would definitely take under consideration.
And so, my understanding, which I'm probably not understanding all of it, is January 13th, SSYB had a meeting. They were ready to go. And then suddenly everything changed in the meeting on the 19th. What happened? Like between the 13th and the 19th? And my understanding was like they were ready to go, working on a board, moving forward. And then suddenly on the 19th, there's a big meeting and it's suggested that the Boys and Girls Club take it over. And then what I heard, there were all kinds of requirements then made of them after that meeting on the 19th. So what happened between the 13th and the 19th that changed everything?
So I'll just go to January 3rd. January 3rd this year, I received a phone call from an individual who stated he was coming in to take over youth baseball. He'd been asked to step in to right the ship, in his words, so he wanted to meet with me. He met with myself and Parks and Rec manager Travis Cheney, and in that discussion, it was talked about a meeting that was coming up, that he would be establishing a new 501c3, as the one previously was not in good standing per him. He had a book with him with a different league name than Siloam Springs Youth Baseball. So we agreed to some particular terms. His stand at that meeting was that it was an opportunity to kind of rebrand youth baseball. And so we talked about a very similar agreement that we're doing with the Boys and Girls Club, a temporary situation. I wasn't at the meeting that took place after that. After that meeting, I received a phone call or a text from that individual said that he was no longer involved. There were a few people from the public that had went to that meeting. We received phone calls, so the next day attempted to reach out to Siloam Springs Youth Baseball. Really the only way we knew how was to go through Facebook. And so we sent messages. We never heard back, asking to meet before their meeting on the 19th. Then I found a number and texted the individual directly. Still no response. So it was decided we would go to the meeting because simply in years past, we would have had a conversation with somebody to say, here's the lease, terms that we need to talk about. The lease was expiring. We didn't hear from anybody. So that's why we went to the meeting to kind of see what was going on. At that meeting, I was asked to introduce myself and say why I was there, and I stated that, look, we just want to know what was going on. We haven't heard from anybody. The lease is coming to an end. So that was our concern. There were other members of the public there that had questions that I didn't think were relevant to the city, so I deflected a few questions. And what came out of that was, if this doesn't work, then what? And I threw out the proposal. That meeting on the 19th, there was an individual there who volunteered to gather everybody's emails. And I asked, and I typically say this, but I said, everything I'm talking about is subject to board approval. But we would have a conversation with our board of directors at a date to be named, and we would invite them to come. There was an individual, like I said, took emails and then emailed the next day, asking questions. I responded once, and then I said, hey, seems like there's a lot of questions out there, so instead of going back and forth on email, how about we have a meeting for those who had signed up on the list. I wasn't really sure who was who because she emailed me first with with people copied to it. So that following Monday, we had a meeting. At the end of that meeting, before I stepped out, because there were other questions, I said, this sounds like this is the consensus of what you want to see. And the majority of the people there spoke up and said yes. And so that's why we proceeded down this pathway. And then on the meeting that following Monday, we heard the same. And so this is why we're here in front of you tonight.
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Mindy.
Okay. I'd like to hear from some of the citizens that came tonight, because I know a lot of you are here to talk about baseball, but I'll go ahead and make a couple of comments now because Siloam Springs Youth Baseball is very near and dear to my heart. My son played baseball on the Siloam fields from the time he was 4 until he was 14 and started high school ball. We spent a lot of time, hot, cold, in between, lots of time out at the fields. I always appreciated the leadership, the volunteer parents. It was a lot of work, and it was work that fell on the parents and whoever the members of the board were at the time. Always did appreciate that, but even then, it was difficult, I know, at times for them to get all the help that they need. Oftentimes, parents would have to miss their own child's game to work in the concession stand or work at the gate, work as umpires. It was difficult, and I understand it's continued to get difficult. Parents are just pulled in so many different directions these days that it just gets difficult to be everywhere at every time needed. My understanding is that over the last couple of years, there have been some concerns expressed by parents over issues. I don't want to get into the issues here, but the city has gotten involved because when parents have had concerns or questions, they've come to the city, probably not necessarily knowing exactly who else to go to. So the city has been pulled in. And my impression is the city has just responded in the best way they can under Don's leadership, just responded the best way they can to make sure that we fulfill the ultimate goal, which is to provide a place and a time and a season for our boys to play baseball and our girls to play baseball, because there are girls that play as well. That is the ultimate goal. I feel like we're being presented an option that could be a win-win. Parents won't have as much responsibility. I would like to see, I understand too, this is a stopgap recommendation. I would like to see long-term parents still being involved somehow. Perhaps there could be a board of parents that could help with whatever the Boys and Girls Club or whoever ends up running the organization. These parents can be involved with that. What I really want to see is just a place for our youth to be able to play baseball, both on the league level and at a competitive level, but within the same organization. One of the things that was always fun for our family was we would play the league, and then we would be involved in the all-star teams, and that would kind of go up through the Cal Ripken competition. So we got to travel a lot, and it was a good time. I want that to be able to continue, and it seems like there are just some issues that are making that hard this year, but I feel like we've gotten a lot of support from parents that have reached out to us about this plan that's being presented, but I do want to hear from people that are here tonight as well when we have that chance. So thank you, Dawn.
Lisa? Oh, Carol?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I've not been involved with this baseball in Siloam Springs, but I've been involved when my children were younger in another town. And I think it's very important that we provide this opportunity for boys and girls. We have some fields out there. I think we should be using them. But I have had complaints for a couple of years, and we always thought it was going to get better. And it just seems this year it's just not going to. And I know that the Boys and Girls Club has been good at providing other avenues for our outlets for our kids. And I would like to see that we can work something out with the Boys and Girls Club. And I appreciate your efforts, Dawn.
Thank you, Carol. Lisa?
I just
No?
want to make sure.
Okay.
Because I heard her.
Anyone else? If not, at this time, we'll ask for comments from the public on the sports contract. Yes, sir. And I'll ask that you please state your name and address.
Michael Reynolds, 502 Meadowbrook Circle, Siloam Springs. Thank you for this opportunity to address each of you. And the issue of baseball has been near and dear to my heart for probably 25 years that I've spent coaching youth and with my own children, with other people's children. Since I moved here, I volunteered with the Boys and Girls Club also as a coach. But most of all tonight, I'm here because I'm a concerned parent. Would I volunteer for anything? Absolutely. That, I think, is the spirit of this business. But in this situation, I think that the interim use of the Boys and Girls Club's oversight to make our baseball season happen is probably the best thing that we could do. I was present at some of the meetings that Don was present at. There are some people who would think otherwise and some people who agree with me. And I want to thank, first of all, the Siloam Springs Youth Baseball for doing what they have done for the past few years and making a season possible. What I would like to see in the future, though, is that we be able to reorganize this particular organization in something that will move forward in perpetuity, that will allow us to make improvements to our athletic complex that brings us, up to speed with some of the other communities around here, but also provides a platform for our children to learn something that maybe they didn't learn in school: leadership, perseverance, and dedication. And I hope that we can build a program here that will allow them to do that. What I want to express again is my support for what Don has in mind, and I would hope that you would consider allowing another organization to take this over as maybe as a nonprofit again after that. Give us enough time to regroup, get a group of people together who are dedicated and are willing to work as hard as they can to make youth sports in Siloam Springs something that we can all be proud of. I know you've been proud of it in the past, and I've been proud of it in the places that I've been before, and I really like what we have here. I'd just like to see it move forward and get better. So thank you for your time this evening, ladies and gentlemen, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address and 3 minutes.
Kathleen Dietzick, 1102 South Holly Street.
Can you pull your mic down? Thank you.
I wasn't sure, sorry. Kathleen Dietzick, 1102 South Holly Street in Siloam Springs. I have been a current member of SSYB's board since I moved here in 2016. My son played ball for the first time in 2017, and I, just being new, said I wanted to help out in any way, be involved. 2018 season was coming along and got a phone call, went to the meeting, and been there ever since. 2020, COVID shut us down. We had no league, no season. 2021, there was 3 of us and our families. We have reached out multiple times to the concerned families, to the concerned parents that have concerns that the season isn't running well or the fields or whatever, and nobody comes. We reached out again this year under the direction that Don told us that we needed. I have a message from the person that met with him on the 3rd or so of January telling me that he was stepping down because of all the stipulations that were going to be required for us this year, which included a Parks and Rec person being on our board. I finally put out a message that if we don't get something put together, we're not going to have a season. Daily, my messages go off on my phone asking me when registration's starting. And their biggest concern was financial situations, which I'm not going to discuss. I've never been part of the financial side of it. And then the agreeing to just turn it over to somebody else and let the Boys and Girls Club take over. It breaks my heart that people don't want to step up like I did in a brand new community and run this league. I don't have answers of why. I have missed the last 5 years of my older son playing. I just don't understand that they have concerns of the way it runs, but let's turn it over to somebody else instead. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium. Give us your name and address. You will have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Nathan Patterson, 304 Meadowbrook Circle. I wanted to state publicly, I think Mike Williamson, Katie should be publicly commended for their years of service on the board. I think more than anything, them two kind of single-handedly kept the league together over the last few years, and I do think they should be commended. I also, having served on and off on the board, and I've coached youth baseball now for several years, and also serve a volunteer on the Boys and Girls Club. I do think that it's time for a change. I do not think that Mike Williamson or the current board in its state is able to actuate the change that is needed to create that momentum for youth baseball. There's a feeling among most of us coaches that we're pretty far behind in terms of how we stack up, even competitively with teams and cities, that are similar to our size. There's a feeling of frustration that the city is not willing or unable to invest the needed resources to create the kind of environment that will, create successful athletes down the line. And we lose a lot of athletes to other leagues. Like my son right now currently has to play baseball in Pea Ridge to afford him the ability to be prepared to play high school baseball. And I know we have a new baseball coach. I would like to see the city, the board, the parents rally around our kids to create an environment of success. And as Mike said, build that character and create an exciting place for us to play. With that being said, I have concerns that maintaining the fields is much more than just mowing. There is so much work that goes into that, and I'm sure Don has a plan for that. But the dirt work, it needs drainage system. Like there is a lot that it needs, and I think I do agree with Mike and Katie here that we probably need a year or so to reassess and figure out what those needs are, and then I'd say I also approve and support the stopgap plan for the Boys and Girls Club to manage, but we need a long-term fix. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
My name's Joey Hunter at 2505 South State Line Road, Siloam Springs, Arkansas. My kid played youth baseball all the way up till he was 14. He's done youth soccer. Coming before the board with the soccer league, I know we're not about that. Several years ago, soccer league was in the same situation. Soccer league was having trouble. City helped them for a year. Soccer league's back up. I also work for Parks and Rec. So guess what? I'm one of the guys that will be there for you guys. I've had kids. I have kids. We're there. That being said, it is a short-term thing. My thought is it gives you a set to reset, create something, continue on with a good board. Like I said, we did it with soccer several years ago. Soccer's doing well. It's there. Parents are there. Kids are there. Our goal is for them to play, whether it's wherever. My theory from Parks and Rec is who do we support and how do we make them successful.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, yes, sir. Please give us your name and address.
Jeff Lee, live at 20988 Long Farm Road. I'm probably like a lot of parents that aren't here tonight, probably not aware. They just sign their kids up to come play baseball because that's what you do as a parent. We were involved last year. I know youth anything to organize is very difficult. It's very hard. And then kind of learning of what the teeter-totter situation is right now of baseball, I went and visited with Dawn and said, hey, what do you have? What's going on? There's not a burning desire from the city to want to have a monopoly on baseball in this town. But what there is a burning desire to make baseball continue in this town. And at the end of the day, if there is not a solution or it continues the way it goes and it doesn't happen, the people are still going to come to the city and go, why didn't you do something? And I think that's already happening. And it's been probably happening for a couple of years. So I commend those that volunteered their time and put their time in. I know that's probably in a rough situation because organized sports, anything, youth, it's tough to keep your hands on and keep motivated and keep people involved. So I feel like the stopgap is a great opportunity, as others have said, to reset, rejuvenate, and get some eyes and awareness, like myself, of what the situation is and the severity of there needs to be some help. And I think that stopgap's going to help that. So that's all.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If not, board, I will come back to you. Any comments or questions?
Madam Mayor, I have a question for
Betsy?
Katie Dees, if that's correct. Do you want to continue SSYB this year?
Please come to the podium, Kathleen. Thank you. That's fine.
I would like to, yes. One thing that Ms. Hunt mentioned was All-Stars, and there will be no Babe Ruth, Cal Ripken All-Star teams under Boys and Girls Club. I did forget to mention that I had been approached by Colcord, who has requested to, as they did last year, play along with SSYB this year. They have enough kids, but not enough to play just for themselves, you know. And he informed, their league president informed me that at one other time for basketball or something, they were told that they could not join Boys and Girls Club or play against the Boys and Girls Club because they were not a Boys and Girls Club. So, but they won't, I mean, Boys and Girls Club can't charter with Cal Ripken. There will be no All-Stars. There will be no tournaments. You know, I would like to see it. I've already said I can't imagine my nights not at the ballpark. I've tried to sit and watch my son's game and turn around and see a line of parents waiting for their hot dogs at the window, and there I go back to the, you know, look out the window and my little one's up to bat, so I run out real quick. And I've been up there to take registrations. I've been up there to hand out the fundraiser stuff that's come in, and that's.
So do you think you've got...
And that's, yes, I mean, but I do agree that we need the support, but we've been asking for support. And that's my concern, is that will this be only one season at Boys and Girls Club? I just honestly don't see it coming back.
Right. So you think you've got the board, you have everything you need to run it this year?
I mean, we were prepared. Like I said, we had people that were from the first meeting on the 12th, I believe it was, or 13th, that I thought when we came back on the 19th, we were going to be nominating, electing, and, you know, voting in people. On the 19th, I walked in and found Don and other people, and it all shifted to being asked why I had, you know, that he had seen the desperate mess, you know, Facebook posts, and you know, that why would we be putting a board together when we don't even have a lease yet? And so I was under the understanding that we needed to have a board in place to get our lease.
Right.
So, and that's what I thought we were doing, and then everything shifted. So
I saw a copy of the text message that was sent from the gentleman after the meeting, saying that in order to renew the lease, it would be a 6-month lease. City staff member had to be on your board. Monthly reports, whole new board, and the city takes over the maintenance and all of those things. So was that?
I know in a previous season that Don had brought to us that the city would take over maintenance of the fields. And that's all they wanted, was maintenance of the fields. And for us to sell and or store our trailer and lawnmowers elsewhere. So that he could, or Parks and Rec or whoever, would store their mowers on the fields in our storage units.
So what would happen to your equipment? Because don't you store it in your building on the fields?
So we would either have to sell or find somewhere else to hold it.
Okay. But it sounds like you would be able to move forward, I guess.
If we had the support of the people, I mean, we have the registration forms. We just need to hit the print button or tell the printers to go ahead. The email had already been out to the school superintendent, who has to approve us to send the registrations into the schools. Michael had already paid for our online registration program in December. That's usually up and running. We usually have full registrations pretty much by now. There's usually skills testing the first Saturday in March, with the drafts the week later, with practices starting as soon as coaches call their their players, with opening day in April. We're more than a month behind at this point.
Right.
But it's a lot for, and we just don't have it. I mean, 3 of us and our families just, we've had field days, like, hey, we're going to be at the field on Saturday, we're going to get them all ready to go, last year, putting up the line protector or whatever of the top of the fence, the fire department came over and helped them put those up. Michael thanked them by giving them a clam bake or something. My son was standing on a tractor, trying to put them up there. I mean, my biggest concern is I don't see it coming back.
I guess.
And I think we'll lose the competitiveness. Like I said, there will be no all-stars. In 2018, 2019, we hosted the regional tournament. The team that won on our field went to the Little League World Series. I mean, it brought in 6 other states, many families into the city of Siloam. We won't have that under Boys and Girls Club. They can't charter. So.
Does that mean our kids could only play
Boys and Girls Club?
Boys and Girls Club. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah. Yes, David.
did I just hear right, Betsy? Katie, can you answer that again?
I'm sorry, sir.
Did you say that if Boys and Girls Club is running the baseball, they can only play
Correct.
Boys and Girls
From
Club?
my understanding, they cannot charter with Cal Ripken.
Oh, the Cal Ripken.
Well,
Okay.
right. So and I have been told that, like I said, this gentleman from Colcord informed me that he has been told that because they are not a Boys and Girls Club, that they would not be able to play.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Katie. I'll just give a little background. This field was donated by Lazy Boy. I don't know if everybody knows that. The land was donated by Lazy Boy north of their old plant in September of 1979, specifically for baseball use. Can't find a contract, but we have the quick claim deed, so we know when it occurred. And then more was given in 1994. I coached at Siloam Springs Youth Baseball when my boys were younger for 2 years, and my wife served on the board of directors and eventually became president, and eventually had so much stress she resigned because of how much stress can go on just dealing with irate parents or umpires or coaches or whatever, and I have to hand it to any Siloam Springs Youth Baseball board that gives their time because you're volunteering, and many times, yes, just like football parents that run the concession stand will miss the football game. So I fully grasp the amount of dedication it takes, especially for a board that is smaller and doesn't have a lot of people stepping up. It sounds like by a lot of the emails our board got, there has not been a great deal of parent interest until suddenly this controversy came up about not moving forward with Siloam Springs Youth Baseball. From what I can understand is that I believe there was a meeting to put a new board together, to put new officers in place, of which the 3 that are on the board now would be stepping back and letting new people take over. And that's when everything was shut down and your board was told, why are you even setting a new board when I'm not going to sign your lease? As it is now, everybody's a month behind. And if this was going to be done, it should have been done 6 months ago. But it sounds like there's been one or two people griping about not getting a refund or something, of which everything we've been able to see on emails, you guys have been above and beyond trying to refund people when you had the COVID. But I can assure you, if stupidity was a felony, we'd need 10 times as many prisons in this country as we have now. Without a doubt, sounds like there was some stupid moves made financially, but anyone is proven guilty only after a trial. They are assumed innocent. And I don't know anybody on the Siloam Springs Baseball Board. I don't know anybody that is involved with it, so I don't have any favoritism or anything. I sympathize simply because of the amount of time that is put into volunteering. And I sympathize that you can shake the trees and people will promise, but they won't show up. And so I get it. I totally get it. It sounds like there's, just reading the lease that has been, I guess Jerry Rice said it was going to be only offered for 6 months after a new board was put together. But there's a lot of things in this lease I'm just surprised are in there on the youth baseball being responsible for the fence, for sidewalks, for heat and air on the concession stand, just a lot of things that were a surprise to me. And I guess we approved this in February of 2021. 20 years ago, Siloam Springs Youth Baseball was getting funds from the city of Siloam Springs. I don't know what happened, but it was financially supported by the city. So I can see both sides of the situation, but no matter what, I think when it gets down to the brass tacks, it has to remain a parent volunteer-run organization. Whether there's a Band-Aid for this year, which I've heard it described as this is a Band-Aid for 1 year, or not. I think in the long term, it's got to remain a parent volunteer organization. And I do see the side of Siloam Springs Youth Baseball. If you had some funding, you would be able to offer it for free to every child in Siloam, and there would not be a registration fee. Wouldn't that be nice? That would be fantastic. It is something to say that as it is already, we got email that the Youth Baseball Board does give scholarships to underprivileged kids that their families cannot afford. So I think that is saying something right there that you already are doing that. We did get a bank statement and we got 2 years worth of Excel spreadsheets for 2021 and 2022. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, David. Lisa?
This is a sad situation. It's a very sad situation. Our kids don't understand what's going on. They just want to play the sports, no matter what sport you play. And when I was younger, and I'm not going to say how old I am, but when I was younger, we did our sports through Parks and Rec. I was on the swim team. I played softball. I played others. I wasn't good, but I played. But I remember being on the swim team, and we had the Popeye International here. We had events here that were huge for Siloam Springs, and we had them at JBU. And so from that, I do have some questions from some comments that were made, and I don't know if Don will answer these or if you will answer these, but I do have multiple layers of questions. One is, does the boys and girls, can people from Oklahoma, because there's a lot of people from Oklahoma. I was on the youth soccer for years. I was on the board, and we had a lot of Oklahoma students come over and play youth soccer. So can they play through the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, in fact, Chris Shimmer, 2312 West Tulsa Street. In fact, for probably 20 years, we've had children from Oklahoma play in our various programs. In fact, this last fall, we had teams from Colcord that we were able, because of Colcord and Gentry and other communities, we were able to offer a flag football program. So, yes, they can. I also like to just make a couple statements here, just to kind of correct some errors that were mentioned earlier. Number one, we fully can charter as a Cal Ripken program. Fort Smith, if anybody knows, Fort Smith baseball program through the Boys and Girls Club was chartered Cal Ripken. There's probably 15 or 20 in the past cities around the state or Boys and Girls Clubs that did charter. There is nothing that prevents us from chartering. The issue with Cal Ripken, as I understand it now, is there's nobody else up in Northwest Arkansas that's playing Cal Ripken. If we have all-star teams, they have to travel to South Arkansas. So that's the issue, and that's coming back. That's what my understanding from parents, and that's part of the issue with it. And so, in discussions, and there have been ongoing discussions about, okay, what can we do to help get our kids competitive in those areas? Most people in Northwest Arkansas are playing U-Trip baseball now, and that's what that's what most of the committees.
Chris,
It's unfortunate.
Could you step closer to the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So most, like I said, most of the programs in Northwest Arkansas are participating in a different affiliation. Now, a couple of years ago, this club charter Babe Ruth softball, which is parent company of Cal Ripken. So we were doing Babe Ruth. So again, that's just some, misinformation that was out there as far as that. And do you have any other questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I think it's for SSYB. I want to go back and forth.
Sure.
Thank you, Chris.
How many people played last season, the last couple of seasons? How many kids played?
Have anywhere from 4 to 5.
Into the mic, please.
We have anywhere from 400 to 500 children register every year.
In the last meeting, so for 400 to 500 children, and some parents have 2, 3
Correct.
kids. How many SSYB parents were present at the January 19th meeting?
I would say maybe 3 or 4 couples, maybe 8 or 10 parents. I'm trying to see who was, standing or sitting and.
Okay. And from those, they were going to be the new board members.
That's what I thought was happening. I thought when we came back together again on the 19th of January that we would be electing.
So what's a full board to you?
We were 10.
10 is a full board. Sorry, I'm writing these down as we write. Did you have any other parents show interest in being on the board, or just those 10 that showed up, or those 8 to 10 parents that showed up?
Every year people ask. We did have a meeting, I believe it was before the holidays, and we had a family or husband and wife that showed up. They did not show back up in January that I remember. But like I said, it's every year that I've been around. We put it out. We're having a board meeting looking for new members, and they don't, yeah.
Yeah, when I served on the soccer board, it was hard to get parents to volunteer.
Correct.
To do the fields, to do the concessions, to provide all these levels, the coaching. And so a lot of times you wore multiple hats. As a board member, you wore multiple hats. And
right.
The parents that were coaching multiple teams. And then you had the same refs that are also players. And it was hard to balance. Why do you feel like that you have what you need to do this season?
We don't. I mean, I would like to say we do. We've got the funding in the bank left over from last year. Like I said, we reached out for help. I mean, at this point, I can't do it by myself. The current league president, who had stepped down due to allegations, he had every intention of sticking by. We all said we're not going to walk away. I would, we're here to help. I mean, if I were to take over as president, I would need somebody's guidance. I've never run a league before. I wouldn't know who to reach out to for chartering or for the insurance or anything, so we requested help like we have in the past. And like I said, at the first meeting, I thought we had people that, said, okay, we'll reconvene next week on the 19th, meet again here at 6 o'clock. And on the 19th, when Don was done with his conversation, everybody followed him out the door.
Okay, and
So,
how do you feel about the stopgap? Do you think it gives you time to regroup with new parents?
I think if we have, yes, I think if we have the time, but like I said, I just have a feeling that we'll be in the same place, I don't understand, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to say it exactly what would be the difference next year when they didn't step up this year?
Okay, so
Or
the
they
board
didn't
has
step
to
up in the
approve
past.
before boys and girls can take it over,
Right.
it would have to come back before this board again.
Right.
And get approval. So the only thing we would be voting tonight is for one season.
Correct. But that's what I'm saying is like, that's what I'm not seeing where or who may step up next season. You know what I mean? I think that's my concern.
Oh, okay.
Because they haven't stepped up before.
Okay.
So, I think that's just that's the big part of it as far as, I just think they've complained, they've had concerns or whatever, but they don't volunteer.
Well, I thank you for volunteering because youth sports is important to our community. And I know how hard it is. It could almost become a full-time job.
Yeah. I mean, I leave my full-time job and I go over to the ball field and I'm not home till 9:30, 10 o'clock. Like I said, my little one was playing whether he liked it or not because he was coming down to the ball fields with me, whether he liked it or not.
Right. Yeah, I've been there. So I understand. I do want to say that if we do this, in my opinion, it's this season only. I don't. If the city's going to step in, the city needs to step in and take over and do it like it was when I was younger. We were offered all kinds of sports. I did twirling, I did dance, I did swimming, I did softball, I did all kinds of events, and it was ran by the city. But I also think that we need to let the programs lead the programs. It's hard when we have to step in, and I've heard all kinds of great things about the Boys and Girls Club. It has nothing to do with Boys and Girls Club. I think this was, like some have said, a Band-Aid or a stopgap. For me and my vote, it's for one season only, and I would like to see more parents step up. It is hard when you're the one out there at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night doing the concessions, striping the fields, mowing the lawn, doing the work. And sometimes you want to cry because you're so exhausted because you have to coach when somebody doesn't show up, or you have to work the concessions, and you don't see your children play. There's many games I didn't get to see my children play. And so hopefully the parents will step up. People are starting to notice that help is needed, and so maybe help will come. So, but my vote will be based off of this season and this season only.
Thank you, Lisa. Carol?
I have a question for Chris. Do you feel you have the staff to take care of this season?
I believe so. The other thing I would say too is that we are a very volunteer-dependent organization as well. We have a couple hundred volunteers a year, and people in Siloam Springs have been wonderful, and they will generally step up when you really need them to. So, I've talked it over with my staff. We've had discussions about it. Yes, we can do it for and I think the stopgap method is a great idea. One of the things that we've had discussions already, that there have been people who have, that I've talked to, and that have talked to, other, Don and others about, that they do want to be involved. And so our hope would be that with our experience that we can kind of help to maybe set that in place, be involved in helping to create that organization that can eventually take it back over. I agree with a lot of the sentiments here and appreciate all the work that folks over, at SSYB have done. I've been friends with many of those folks for 20 years. So, but to answer your question, yes, we'll do what we do, and we'll get through it and hopefully set it off onto a new path, a better path.
Thank you. I think the whole goal is just to be able to provide an opportunity for our children to play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we're looking for. And I have been involved, as I said, not in this town, but in another town, that actually it was developed by a retired pro baseball player. And it worked very successfully. The city was not involved. It was very parent-driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think parents need to realize if they want their children involved, they need to be involved. And I
Right.
think that's where we all need to be coming from.
Got to create that buy-in, and got to create that buy-in where they have a stake in what's going on. So,
And I'm just looking for this year. That's all I'm going to be voting on. But I have had concerns for a year or two about the youth baseball. And it's very important. So I appreciate what we're talking about. I'm glad to see the parents out here. As I said, it's all about the kids being able to play.
Thank you, Carol.
Madam
Don,
Ma-
you have something you'd like to say? Close.
Go
Mindy?
ahead, Don, and then I'll follow up.
And then I'll go after you.
I just wanted to add a point of clarification for the meeting that took place that evening. That some of those discussions that were going on was talking about dissolving SSYB and what happens to their property and things of that nature, which is why we said hit pause. Let's figure out, because there was a lot of questions that night, and it became clear to me and those in the meeting that they weren't going to be fleshed out in the next matter of weeks or months. So that was why the proposal came up of allowing us to do a stopgap measure for people to give an opportunity to reorganize. I told Mike and Renee and Katie that night that they've carried the burden a long time. And we've seen that. We saw the post coming out pleading for help, which is why we were compelled to get involved to say, what can we do to make sure youth baseball is played this year? And that was the intent of that meeting. Some of those people that were at that meeting are here in the audience tonight. I don't believe that it was a threat. It was, hey, let's just hit pause to allow you to recoup, which is why we're talking about a temporary measure and not something permanent. And then allow us to have those discussions, which is part of our proposal, and have surveys with the folks that are involved in the program, and then bring back you an option. And hope we would love for it to, as Joey stated, we were involved with that with the soccer club, and we helped them for a year, and then they got their volunteer base back, and they've been going strong since then. We work with the Fire Swim Club, who's a volunteer organization. So it was brought up that we're kind of running to the 11th hour because, quite frankly, from my position, we gave every chance we could. I can tell you right now, I had no desire to stand up here and doing what I'm doing, but we need to get involved because there was at risk for the season not to happen. So I just wanted to make sure I speak to that. And then in 2019, yes, there was a proposal for us to take over the maintenance of the field. That was with a previous president who was there at the time, and we discussed it because of the same issues that are kind of here today, volunteer issues. So we discussed it with that then current that president at the time, and we moved, preparing ourselves to do so. And then there was a new president elected, a new board, and we received an email that said they had it. They believed they had enough members on the board to be able to maintain the facility. So we stepped out. On the 2019 regional tournament, the city and the chamber were heavily involved with SSYB and putting that tournament on. We put money into our budget that you approved for improvements to that facilities, for tarps, rebuilding of mounds, all those things for that tournament to go on. So it's been a partnership, and we would love to see it continue. But at the same time, we were compelled to act because we were at fear that the season would not be able to be played this year. So I wanted to be clear, that is what we're asking for, an amendment, a temporary fix to allow people to discuss, and then we bring back to you an option, and it's your pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Mindy?
I just want to thank those that came tonight and those who have emailed us about their concerns, desires, wishes. I like the comment that several of you made about taking this time for sort of a reset. What I'm hearing is that there is a need for that, and I think maybe that will kind of create a renewed interest in parents stepping up, volunteering more. Hopefully that will be the case. I think this is a good short-term solution, it sounds like, and I appreciate the positive support that you all have provided for that short-term solution. And I really appreciated what you had to say, Mr. Lee, is that right? Okay. Just about, it's not been my impression, even though I've heard some concerns over the last couple of years, it's not my impression that anyone from the city is just clamoring to take over the SSYB. Our staff is pretty busy, as it is. I really appreciated the sentiments of being there to help from Parks and Recreation whenever we can, and it sounds like Boys and Girls Club is ready to hit the ground running. But no, I don't think anyone's been clamoring to take over anything. But I do agree also that I do think city staff, and I think it was just reflected in what Don said, there was a concern that there might not be a season this year because of some issues. We have a passion for being able to provide an opportunity for these kids to play baseball. It's a good thing for the city. It's a good thing for the kids. It's a good thing for the families. It's a good thing for the city as a whole. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you for expressing your concerns. Thank you for being involved. And please do what you can to stay involved so that we can keep baseball going the way it has been.
Thank you, Mindy. Betsy?
Madam Mayor. Oh,
Betsy?
I
And
was
then
in
David
line,
will come to
David.
you.
I feel your pain. If you want something done, ask a busy person. I've gotten involved in all kinds of things because people like to complain, but they don't like to step in. And so that's my concern for the future. And yeah, and I'm a little older than Director Rissler. But I grew up here, and the city, the Parks and Rec, did everything, and I played all the sports. I forgot about the twirling. I did that too. I played softball. I did it all, and the Parks and Rec did it. And that's how it is in Fayetteville, Bentonville, Rogers. They all have really strong programs. I would like for that to be something the city considers, because volunteers are always difficult to come by, and I don't see this, maybe everybody will rise up and it'll be completely different. But I think we need to look at long term, how can we make sure this doesn't happen? And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I would like for the city to look into what would it take to take over these programs and to handle all of it. Yeah, I also see the Boys and Girls Club as, like they've said, a stopgap, a Band-Aid, because it doesn't sound like right now you've got the volunteers to do it with SSYB, which I think that's sad. So, yeah, but I would like to visit more about possibly, in the long run, the city doing it and building it up. So we've got programs like the cities around us that have really strong programs, because I don't think we've got that here. So, I mean, no offense to anybody, but obviously there are issues. So, thank you.
Thank you. David?
thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say, from some of the emails we've gotten, it sounds like the nonprofit status went away because the Siloam Springs Youth Baseball Board was expecting the taxes to be filed, but now that paperwork is sitting with someone who is going to file and did not. Maybe that person's watching TV tonight. Please get the paperwork back to Siloam Springs Youth Baseball. But I know, as I said at the meeting that Don was running, if the group that is going to be gets with an accountant, there are accountants in Siloam that will do pro bono work for a charitable organization, and I think that that would be a huge step in the right direction to get things set up for future boards. I've got no problem with Boys and Girls Club doing this for this year. I realize you guys are already very, very busy. You already do a lot of sports. I didn't know what other sports will be taking place while you take this on. You're doing softball as well, right? Yep. I just don't want you guys to become overwhelmed, but it sounds like you've already come up with a plan, Chris. And I will say, I said at that meeting, if there's any man who could do it, it's Chris Schimmer. I've known him a long time, and he knows how to pick things up and run with the ball. The thing I noticed, I think it was Mike Reynolds, you stood up and said you would volunteer. I think your wife Miranda was at that last meeting, and she said you guys would both be interested. How many in the audience, I'm just curious, raise of hands, would be involved in serving on a future baseball board? Now, how many as an officer? All right, see? So it is a matter of parents and volunteers stepping up to take charge and make decisions, because the coaches and the umpires and the players, they're just waiting to be told what to do, and they need a board of directors to give them the insight as to where to go. And so I will support the Boys and Girls Club doing this one season, and I appreciate them stepping up and finding the time to do it.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, David. Yes.
I do want to say, when we look at the contract for renewal for the SSYB, because I have faith in the parents that they will come together and make this happen, I do want to make sure our contract with the baseball team is similar to other contracts. Like, if we do not require one of our Parks and Rec employees to be on other boards, let's not require it to be on SSYB. If we do not require an audit from other entities, let's not ask it from the SSYB. Let's make it where they can succeed. We give them the tools to succeed, because this is for our children.
Thank you, Lisa. Bitsy?
Mayor. And I hope all those parents who raise their hands will step up and help the Boys and Girls Club, because like Chris said, they are volunteer and they're going to need help. They're taking on a lot. So hopefully, Chris, all those people who raise their hands will be calling you to volunteer.
I got the recording.
Good. Good.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Chris, I do have one question for you, please, real quick. And maybe I missed this and you said this. When we're talking about all-stars and everything, are you planning on signing on with U-Trip so this will take place?
Yeah, we've had discussions, just kind of preemptive. Of course, we were kind of in limbo, I think like everybody has been so far, as far as which direction it was going to go. But we had one of our staff just kind of look into that, to what it would take to charter with, say, U-Trip. There are tournaments there, that are potential. I grew up with Little League. Little League was the one that we did. And I know that, in fact, I remember bringing over teams to play Siloam Springs back when they were Little League, back in the mid-'90s and early '90s. So it's a shame that Cal Ripken, Little League, those organizations have kind of gone by the wayside. It really is. Now, U-Trip is there. That's what most everybody is doing. So if we needed to charter with U-Trip in order to get, say all-star teams into tournaments, that's what we would do. But that's going to, that we definitely want to have some kind of postseason for those kids. I agree. It's important, and that needs to happen. So that would be something that doing that, or trying to find some tournaments or something that you could send teams to, that we could send these teams to. But yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that we had talked about, and heard about Boys Club taking over, which, again, I'm with everybody else. I don't have a problem, because it's all about the kids and them playing ball. I guess when I'd come in, I don't know, I still had a glimmer of hope that maybe you could pull it off. And I know at this point, time is not our friend. And I appreciate you being honest and candid enough to say that, no, it really can't. Okay, so that makes it easy for us. And we like it easy. That's good. And And I was going to say, I'd heard a lot in the short time that we have been involved in adults, parents, saying that they would gladly volunteer. And it just made me wonder why they're not stepping up to take over and get this thing going. But as has been pointed out, you're all now on record saying that you will do this, okay? So don't be surprised next year when people come asking. But I appreciate also everybody here. I know baseball, it was my life growing up through, and again, it was easier. Little League, Babe Ruth, Pony, I had the opportunity to do that, and it's the best time of my life. Semi-pro ball, college, all that is just was out there for me, and it's all because of the organized baseball programs, and it would be terrible for everyone if that were still not the case. So, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, David.
That's right. What Ken just said. Camera is facial recognition software. We're going to be able to know everybody that held their hand up. I want to thank, express gratitude, because when I was a kid, if you didn't have Franklin Electric Field, and the Lazy Boy Field, but that it wasn't as professionally looking as it is now. Thanks to James Butts in the 90s, he got out there and made that field look amazing. But you also had Bob Henry Field for the little kids, and the city has had a lot of organizations make do with what we've had, and Little League was where it was long ago, but except for Lazy Boy and Franklin, some of these others, we might not have some decent fields, and it was their excess property, but they wanted to help the kids, and so I also know that Boys and Girls Club gets a lot of corporate donation, and it's a big thing, and we appreciate what our industry and commercial businesses do to support Boys and Girls Club and other youth organizations around town. All right, Chris. You're supposed to say yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? If not, I would ask if I have a motion to say one thing. You have 3 minutes, sir. Please give us your name and address.
Thank you. I'm Jason Mitchell, 606 North Madison here in Siloam. I'm a graduate from Siloam. I played youth baseball my whole childhood as well, and high school ball. I think it's time for the Boys and Girls Club to step in and take care of this situation. I want to take up for some of the parents that have openly wanted to volunteer, and I have volunteered for 4 years for the Boys and Girls Club, but I do think that the SSYB has been currently the representatives have been running it unchecked for the last 3 or 4 years. So SSYB is not currently a functioning nonprofit, and I don't see how we as potential board members could sign up for something that's not current. And they're not current on their taxes. I just feel that we would be liable for something like that as a board member to take over an organization that's not functioning or has filed their taxes in the last 3 or 4 years. I could only find the 2016 taxes. I just want to take up for the parents and the volunteers, because we willingly will donate money and volunteer to something that we can support and have support on the other side as well. I do think that communication via Facebook with SSYB should cease, because I think that's confusing the other parents that aren't involved in this or at this meeting. We are at the point that we don't have an option really right now, because it's next week's season starts. So I can't support the SSYB in its current state, nor can I remain silent and let the non-current representatives run another season unchecked. Thank you for your time.
Sir. Now, directors, back to you. Do I have a motion to approve the youth sports contract amendment for the Boys and Girls Club of Western Benton County.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carol. Yes.
Finn.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
I didn't recognize his
Wiles.
name.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Don. Thank you, everyone that was here tonight. We appreciate your support and your comments. Next, we will move to our ordinances. Ordinance 23-02, second reading, vacation of drainage easement, 500 block of Highway 412 West, Hammer Williams Company, with the Jiffy Trip. And Megan, are you addressing this? Okay. We'll give you time to get to the front.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Megan Thomas, Planner 1. This is the second reading for a drainage easement vacation located at the 500 block of Highway 412 West. Staff is still recommending approval of this request with no needed conditions, and staff is available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Directors, comments or questions concerning this ordinance?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Reed.
Megan, were there any forms of communication to you concerning this since the past meeting?
Not since the past meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Mindy?
with that in mind, and with Mr. Rose here again tonight, I would ask if we could put this on the second and third reading.
And when we come back, then we'll
Okay.
look at that.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 23-02? Yes, sir. Please
Hello
state your
again.
name and
Yes.
address for us.
Don Rose, represent Jiffy Trip, 2511 Marymount, Enid, Oklahoma. And yes, I appreciate that comment. I am here to request that we combine the final two hearings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? If not, directors, back to you. Any comments or questions at this time concerning this ordinance? If not, then at the request of Mr. Rhodes, I would ask, do we have a motion to place ordinance 23-02 on its second and third reading, suspending the rules and reading title only?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 23-02, an ordinance vacating and abandoning a drainage utility easement right-of-way within Lot 2 of the Siloam Warehouse Addition.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 23-02?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Smiley.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Next is Resolution 09-23, Significant Development Permit for 1993 East Highway 412 Plasma Donation Center. Megan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to click to it real quick. Okay. This is a significant development permit request to construct a 6,500 square foot plasma donation center. This project is located at 1993 East Highway 412 on Lot 9R of the Eastgate subdivision. This property was previously a shopping center, however, due to tornado damage that has since been demolished. This site is Zone C2, therefore this use is appropriate for the current zoning. This is the survey of the property. They will be utilizing these existing drives shown here. And there is an existing access easement to allow connection to the lot to the east that is shown here. On the screen is the site and landscape plan for the proposed plasma donation center. Again, they will be utilizing the existing drives and they are not proposing any additional drive cuts. They will also be constructing a sidewalk along the frontage of this site that will tie into the development with the crosswalk shown here. The dumpster is located here in the southeast corner of the site and will be screened. Shown here in the northeast corner of the site is a heavy-duty concrete pad for future blood drives. Additionally, they will be providing a 6-foot landscape buffer on all sides of the site, as well as interior parking lot landscaping. And these are the elevations for the proposed development. I'll let you guys take a look at those. And this is the overall site view of the property. Staff is recommending approval of this request with 2 needed conditions. The first condition is pertaining to the need to file drainage and utility easements via separate instrument as directed by the city engineer prior to certificate of occupancy issuance. The second condition is regarding the need to acquire a temporary construction easement for off-site work via separate instrument as directed by the city engineer prior to building permit issuance. Staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Directors, comments, questions concerning this resolution? If not, is there anyone in the audience that has questions for Resolution 09-23? There being none, Board, I will come back to you, asking for a motion to approve Resolution 09-23 with listed conditions.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Bristler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is Resolution 10-23, Preliminary Plat Development Permit, Somerset Edition Phase 2, 3000 block of East Kenwood Street. Megan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a preliminary plat permit request to plat Phase 2 of the Somerset subdivision. This proposal is to add 23 new single-family lots on approximately 7 acres with an average lot size of 7,500 square feet. This project is located on the 3000 block of East Kenwood Street. It should be noted that the preliminary plat for Phase 2 was previously approved in 2021. However, due to inactivity constructing the second phase, the preliminary plat approval has since expired, therefore requiring a resubmittal of the preliminary plat for Phase 2. On the screen is the site plan for the proposed Phase 2. As you can see, they will be tying into the existing streets that were previously constructed as part of Phase 1 for the subdivision. Additionally, there is an existing drainage pond located here in the northeast corner of the site. They are also proposing a 20-foot emergency access road here in the northeast corner of the site that will connect to Highway 412. This emergency access will have 2 gated entrances, which are indicated on your screen. And this is a more zoomed in version of that site plan for y'all. You can see that's the first gate for the emergency access. The second one is kind of up here and cut off at the screen. The image on your screen will give you a clearer view of how that 20-foot emergency access road will connect to Highway 412. The gated entrances have been marked on the exhibit for you to see. Both proposed gates will have a Knox lock to allow for fire department access. And this is the subdivision regulations for R2 zoning districts. This proposal is exceeding the minimum lot dimension requirements for R2 zoning. Additionally, all proposed lots are served by proposed sanitary sewer. Staff finds no reasonable causes that the proposed development would specifically interfere with the neighboring property's reasonable peace and enjoyment. The subject proposal is 3.68 units per acre, which falls beneath the maximum density permitted within R2 zoning districts. Traffic will increase by a small amount. However, this increase is not expected to interfere with the neighboring quality of life standards. The future land use map is calling for Neighborhoods 2. The Neighborhoods 2 designation is primarily intended for single-family residential housing ranging from 6 to 10 units per acre. This proposal is 3.68 units per acre. Therefore, this proposal is in line with the future land use plan and is compatible with the context of its location and the character of the surrounding and existing planned neighborhoods. The proposed lots are similar in size to the lots that were previously approved as part of Phase 1, and they are only proposing 23 additional new lots. The proposal is adequately supported by infrastructure as they are proposing to tie into the existing water and sewer lines, and electric services are available for this development. Staff has found no flaws with this proposal that would constitute unsound planning. The lots meet all city standards for health with all available infrastructure either present or proposed on the property. Additionally, at this phase, we will not be connecting directly to East Kenwood Street, so it will not impact the safety of that street. The proposal will also promote favorable economic conditions by providing additional housing options for individuals and families moving to the community. The proposed land survey meets the minimum requirements as shown on the preliminary plat. Again, the future land use map is calling for neighborhoods too, and therefore this proposal is in line with the overall intent of the property. I will let our city engineer, Kevin Moore, speak to the next few slides. Thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you, Megan. Madam Mayor, members of the board, Kevin Moore, city engineer. As Megan mentioned, no new drives are proposed on Kenwood, as this second phase will connect directly to phase 1 of the subdivision. East Kenwood's a collector street with a design traffic load of 9,000 vehicles per day. Existing traffic, including subdivisions that have already been approved, is anticipated 3,795 vehicles per day, with an additional 221 trips per day proposed as part of these 23 lots. It's also worth mentioning that staff is currently in contract negotiations to get in East Kenwood rebuilt and widened to that collector design standard of 37 feet in width. Here you can see the contours of the site. Note the existing ponds prior to the project on the northeast and southeast portions of the site, shown here in the pre-development drainage map. And then here for phase 2 specifically, that will all drain to this northeast pond that was constructed with phase 1, and that was part of their drainage design. Here you can see an aerial of the site facing north with phase 2 highlighted in red. The staff is recommending approval with no conditions and is available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Directors, comments or questions for Resolution 10-23?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Betsy.
If the grant doesn't go through for widening that, I drive Kenwood a lot through there, and it's pretty narrow for a lot of traffic. Will the city widen it if the grant doesn't go through?
That would be at the board's pleasure to put that on a future budget if you wish us to continue without the grant.
It definitely needs to be wider with all the houses going up along there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
Kevin, is this a recent drone picture? Do you know?
Sometime within the last 2 months.
I didn't know they've not started building on any of the first phases yet.
Sorry. This picture was taken about a month before the Planning Commission meeting last month, and they have started pulling building permits for some of these houses, so they do plan to start construction soon on phase 1.
Okay.
Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Resolution 10-23? There is not. Philip?
Madam Mayor, Kevin, just to clarify the question about widening Kenwood, we have received some funding from Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning for the purposes of beginning designing for that, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So, and that funding comes in 3 stages. So there's funding, a grant for design, and then a grant for utility relocations and right-of-way the following year, and then a grant for the actual street construction a third year.
We're just in the process of negotiating with engineers for design work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's a long process.
Government at work.
Yes, but for your knowledge, we've been in at least talks with Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission about the fact that this is a project that we expect to have help from them on, but we've got to go through the process and apply. So there's a couple of other options from state aid through the State Street Aid Committee, but it's a process, and I just want to be very clear that we're just at the beginning stages of that long process.
Thank you, Philip. Kevin, anyone else? Then that would like to, we'll come back to the board. Any comments now after that information? If not, then I would ask for a motion to approve Resolution -23 with no conditions.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Excuse me. Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Next is our staff reports, and under that we have our December 2022 financials, our fourth quarter 2022 board goals update, and the administrator's report. And Philip, I believe that is all yours.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. Thank you, and thank you, Board. You have the financials for the month end in December. That's not year end, it's just the month. And as I told you in the last quarter, I wanted to start giving sort of an oral update as to the financials for the end of the quarter. So as stated in the memo, our revenues in the general fund for the fourth quarter are up just over 8% relative to 2021. The increase is due to increased tax receipts, the stipend grant for police officers, increased pool revenue at the Family Aquatic Center, and the tree grant from the Walton Family Foundation. Our expenses in the fourth quarter were up compared to last year, almost 10%. Main drivers of that, again, were the stipend grant for the police department and the fuel for vehicles and software costs. In the street fund, our revenue is up just over 7%, mainly due to street aid and sales tax receipts. Our expenses are down by about $300,000 compared to the fourth quarter last year. In the utility fund, we're up in sales just over 5%, and our service extension fees for development are up about 30%. Our expenses in the utility fund are increased by just over 9% compared to the fourth quarter last year, mainly due to the debt on the water treatment plant upgrade, depreciation, but our expenses and our budget, we're within our budget as it relates to expenses. In the airport, our revenue is higher than budget. Fuel sales are up by $500,000, and our expenses are down, but we're also purchasing more fuel. And the last fund, healthcare, we're in budget right now. We looks like we'll end up with just under $100,000 to the positive in the healthcare fund. So you have the monthly financials, and finance is working to bring the year-end report to you in the near future, likely be the first meeting in March. And with that, Madam Board, if there's any questions about the fourth quarter goals, I won't go through them. I've given you the updates. This will be the last update for 2021 and 2022 goals. Next update will be the 2023 and 2024 goals that we'll be working on. And with that, I will continue on to my administrator's report. I have a number of expenses that you see in that report. The airport, $32,640 for 8,000 gallons of Jet A fuel. In the solid waste division, $39,986.12 for 4 40-yard roll-off containers for use with customers who have trash compactors. In community development, we had in the budget for a new mid-size pickup truck, so that was $37,785. In the IT division, we had software license renewal for our iWorks module, which is used by community development, planning, public works, sanitation, and maintenance for $30,850. And then we had a number of vehicle purchases in the police department, 5 vehicle purchases, $44,142 each. We didn't believe that we were going to be able to make those, but working with Superior, we found they were able to find police Tahoes for the department. So we have those, and actually they came in all under budget. Per Resolution 43-22 in the electric department, 600 AMI meters for inventory, $99,216. You approved late last year a contract to update our outdoor warning siren systems. So we're currently in the process of updating those. We're doing it in 2 phases. Phase 1 includes the installation of 4 new siren locations and replacement of 2 of the existing 8 sirens. And that is currently being worked on with the electric department. We hope to have that finished by the end of February, and then we will start with the second phase, which will replace the remaining 6. And we hope to have that all done by the end of March, and at no time is it expected that the system will be down. There will be a couple of days each one when one siren may be down, but the total system will not be down. That's the goal. I want to report on the snow and ice storms. Our street and infrastructure crews worked overtime the night of the 24th and early morning hours of January 25th, clearing our streets of snow. We had 17 members work a total of 264 hours during that end of January, including a 12-hour overnight shift. They used 7 pieces of equipment to plow the snow and treat the streets. The total cost for labor and materials and equipment, and we used the FEMA numbers on equipment, that was just over $15,000. This last storm, the ice storm, those same crews worked 12-hour shifts beginning on Monday, January 30th through Wednesday, February 1st, plus 8-hour shifts on Thursday and Friday, plowing the ice, treating the streets with brine, throwing down salt and sand. 16 members worked 770 hours that week, using 8 pieces of equipment, and the total cost of labor, materials, and equipment was almost $77,000. So it's a big, huge number. But I want to give a shout out to those crews. They worked hard. They did a great job, in my opinion, of getting our streets cleared and making it safe for those who had to travel during that time. Every time we get snow and ice storms, I'm always amazed of the compliments that we get from folks who had to travel to cities, and I won't name them in the corridor, and tell us how bad their streets are compared to our streets. So I want to thank those crews on the street and infrastructure. I want to thank those members of those street and infrastructure crews: Nathan Estep, Chris Land, Justin McClendon, James Whiteley, Ricky Gibson, Matthew Boone, Joe Garrett, Nick Lawson, Kevin Allen, Russ Martin, Sam Burrows, Mike Meadows, Robert Rassey, Chris Edwards, John Williams, Ryan Wilson, and Trenton Lyons. They worked a lot of hours, but they did a great job, in my opinion, of doing what they needed to do to keep the streets. And I thank them very, very much. We had one complaint about our streets, and the complaint was us pushing and plowing the snow up against somebody's driveway. So it was a difficult time for them. You could tell that week toward Thursday and Friday they were pretty wore out, but they did a really good job, and they just do a good job for this city. They work hard. Now, the last 2 items on the back of my report, Ashton Land and Michael Vasquez at the wastewater treatment plant. They passed their Class 1 wastewater certification exam, so kudos to them. And then lastly, Megan, our new communications director, provided you with an updated memo at the end of the month. And it's a new format, and I hope you like it. I thought she did a really good job with that. So you'll start seeing that memo come out on a monthly basis. Madam Mayor, that's my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So at this time, we will then move into our directors' reports. Before I give the floor to the directors, I have a couple of things real quick. First of all, I want to say thank you to Jetstream. Senator Bozeman was here and acknowledged their part in donating, I believe it was 15,000 feet of pipe for a water project in Alabama. And the Water Resources board was a part of that, and so a shout out to our industry who is participating in that kind of help, and not only here but in other states. So thank you to them for that. Thank you to our citizens who attended tonight. I appreciate their input and their how they presented themselves, their thoughts and their concerns. Thank you for that. Also, I had a citizen tell me the other day that they really wanted to thank this board for putting a siren out at the kayak park, that they are very excited about seeing that out there, both for the safety of those who are there using the park and the citizens that are living around that area. So I wanted to be sure and pass that on to you all, that it is being noticed and it is appreciated. So with that, we will move on, and tonight, Lisa, I will ask that you start. We will move around, and Betsy, you will close for us.
All right. I want to say thank you to all the employees who worked so hard during the ice storm and the snowstorm, and who kept us safe. I have been getting all kinds of compliments on Megan, the new communications manager. People have been complimenting her posts, that they're very well written and communicated, and so I just want to pass that on. I'm excited that the daddy-daughter dance went over so well that they ran out of tickets, and so I would like to see if there's any way possible that we could find a different place to have it, maybe Camp Siloam, where it's bigger and you can have more people. Because I see a lot of people saying, hey, if you're not using your ticket, can I use your ticket? Or, yeah, there just wasn't. Is the reason it ran out is because you can only have so many people in the building at this? Okay. But I'm glad it went over. I'm excited. I'm glad you mentioned the kayak park, because I had a conversation with somebody, a citizen this week, and they're like, okay, I haven't heard much communication from the board on the kayak park, and it's going to be coming up. This summer's going to be here before you know it, and what are you going to do? And so I would like to have conversation on it, but I would also like to, we've never discussed this, and it's just an idea that was discussed. Have we ever thought, because it is, it's outside our city limits, it puts a lot on our city staff, have we ever thought about either selling or donating it to the Game and Fish and letting their staff keep track of it and maintain it? And I mean, because we will still get the revenue even if our name is not on that land.
I would love to donate it to the Game and Fish if they would take it. I tried to get the county to take it, which the judge immediately said no. We are in discussions with an operator to take over the operations of the park, to charge a fee this summer and let them be responsible for limiting access when it's full, and closing the gate when it's full, and taking care of the trash and all that. And that is likely to come before the board in the very near future.
Okay.
So we put out a request for proposals. We got 2, and staff has been working with those, and I think they have determined, based on the proposals, which one is in the best interest of the city, and it's likely that Don is more than welcome to step up, but I suspect that in March, if not the first meeting in March, it's likely going to come before you to enter into an agreement with an operator that can take over the operations of that kayak park. If the Game and Fish were willing to take it on, I would bring you that proposal in a heartbeat.
Okay, because they do have staff that can.
I don't think in the times past that they have ever indicated any interest in taking that on. Now, we did annex it into the city. It is annexed into the city. We got the state legislature to amend the statutes to allow it to be automatically annexed into the city, because of the fact that when the city originally took it on, our parks rules and regulations couldn't be enforced. We were just a landowner. But I'm hoping that if the agreement with the operator, if that goes smoothly, that's going to put somebody there on the weekends, on the holidays between Labor Day or Memorial Day and Labor Day, and there will be people there to regulate the usage of the park, to regulate the trash, to regulate, open flames and the whole 9 yards, and to limit the access, because the park is loved to death today. So that's the plan. And with the opening of the Waukesha Kayak Park, which is likely not going to happen in the spring, it's going to happen probably in late summer. But with that opening and charging, we're going to propose to start charging a fee at that kayak park also. It's a minimal fee, but we're going to propose that when we bring back the operator agreement.
Okay. Because I will have questions from that, because I'm going to want to know, what we will charge, is it going to offset the cost of our police going out there and our Parks and Rec going out there and, and then the people that you're hiring to manage? Or is this still costing us a lot of money and as much of a pain as it is?
As with most things in the general fund side, the revenue, from building permits or at the in certain areas don't cover the full cost, and I doubt that the fee will cover the full cost. It is intended to cover the cost of the operator for sure, and hopefully with the operator being there, the need for the park staff and the police staff to go out there as often as we currently are doing is going to drop pretty dramatically. That's the goal.
Okay.
We'll have to wait and see if that truly happens, but that's the intent, yes.
Okay. So the reason the conversation came up, and I guess I want to clarify that too, is because we're building trails to go out to the Waukesha. And I know you said it's not going to be in operation this summer, but in the future it will be. So that's going to take our police department. That's going to take our Parks and Rec staff. That's going to take time. So we're just adding more and more. And so I want to make sure we keep them safe as we add all this to them. And so there's a few things I've mentioned in the past, and I'll continue mentioning them over and over, so you'll hear them over and over. I think Parks and Rec should be its own division because I think it's growing enough. I think that there's enough demand for things that we don't currently provide that we could provide. That's just a thought I want to throw out there. Animal control, I still think needs to go under PD, and I still think that we need to bring the museum under the city. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to extend a hearty thank you to the City of Siloam Springs for the work that the city crews have done to clear our streets, keep them in good shape. But also during the time when we had our storms, the police department had to respond, and the fire department had to take care of their business as well. And to have the inhibit nature that was going on and to still be able to do your job, I appreciate our city in all the areas that we showed we can survive these storms and do well. Last week we had the chamber banquet for the Chamber of Commerce here in Siloam Springs, and just something kind of hit me with that, in that we had so many that were represented there. We had large business, small business. We had state representatives. We had representatives from the state, from our city, even from our county. And to me, it was a time of unity, to where we saw things work together. And to me, that spoke volumes. But one of the things that was brought out by Cammie Heavener, the outgoing chairperson for the chamber, was how the chamber, the city, and Main Street worked together. And I thought that was very well done. But I wanted to put a little plug in for our museum as well, Lisa, in that, once we have an event, it's over with, it lands right in the lap of the museum. They have to take care of history, and it's their job to make sure that it's done properly. And I want to just applaud what they've been doing as well. So thank you, Mary, and your crew there. That is all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Reed. Carol?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I especially want to thank the city crew that cleans the streets of all the snow, the ice. I am one that does not like to drive on ice. It makes me nervous. and I felt very comfortable that I could drive and not cause any problems for anybody else out on the road. So thank you guys very much. It's very much appreciated. I want to thank the Boys and Girls Club for stepping up and taking care of our Siloam Springs baseball. I want to thank the citizens that were here tonight that came to speak. It's always appreciative from me to see the citizens that take time out to come to our meetings and give us their viewpoints. I also want to thank the Chamber for a very successful banquet. I really enjoyed it. And congratulations to Tim Estes on being the new chairman of the Siloam Springs Chamber of Commerce. Today I got my electric bill, and not that I was excited to get my electric bill, but on the back was a review of the city for the year of 2022. And so when you get your bill, take a look on the back of that, because we really did accomplish a lot of things, and I appreciate that it was written, and I hope citizens take time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. David?
Pardon me. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's funny that you brought up the siren at the kayak park, because I heard the exact opposite from someone who lives out there, that there's so much farmland with cattle, and how are they going to react to the weekly test that comes at 1 o'clock on Monday. At the time, I didn't think it was proper for us to put one out there, because of people living out there in the country want to be away from a lot of the noise and everything. And I still question if that's a good idea. I guess we will learn in the future how people respond to it. I wanted to recognize Arthur Holbert and their chamber. They did a great job with their banquet this year. Cammie was the outgoing chair, and Tim, and she did a fantastic job. One of the best board chairs I've seen in operation a long time, and Tim Estes, the incoming board chair. But a big congratulations to Ken Ramey. Could not have picked a better pioneer citizen for what he's done for the city and its future, which is the children. And he was a great school superintendent, and then recognized Robin Lundstrom as the Outstanding Civic Leader Award, and she was very deserving as well. I wanted to ask Philip, I heard the county this year on ice and everything was using beet juice instead of salt. And I'd never heard of that, but I learned about it, and it may be something you might want to ask Barry Mooring about, because it doesn't hurt cars like salt can, and it's biodegradable, and it's supposed to do the same job of melting ice. So didn't know if you'd heard about it. I had never heard about it until I heard that they were doing it this year.
I believe we've used it at times in the past,
Really?
Steve. It's part of the salt mix.
Oh, it's part of the salt. Okay. Built into the salt. All right. I just didn't know. It was new one on me, so I didn't know.
I should say beet juice and sand and salt, but I just say sand and salt, sorry.
Okay. Then on the board goal list, it says adopted 2020, like it's the 2020 board goals. Was it not updated, or, I mean, I get confused because.
Let me pull that up real quick.
So many times it still has it's an old board list, like a list from an older board.
No, sir. The 2021, 2022 goals were adopted by the board on July 7th, 2020.
But we've had a board in 21 and a board in 22, so that's why I get confused why we're still using an old goal list.
Well, your 2023 and 2024 board goals were adopted by this board in July of 2022. So that was when they originally were adopted, and then I do the quarterly updates from then on out. So in 2020, the board got together to create the list of 2021 and 2022 goals, just like you as a board in 2022 got together in the summer of 2022 to create the goals for 23 and 24. It may be, Director Allen, if I say originally adopted, would that help?
Well, I just saw adopted, and I didn't know it. It gets confusing for me because I I review it and everything, but I still say, did the goals that we had our meeting last April, did they get inducted into here as separate goals, or?
No, they're 2023 and 2024 goals.
So it's a separate list?
It's a separate list. You'll see that list at the end of the first quarter of 2023.
I guess I just don't understand when we have a new board, why we're still using an old board goal list in that we have a new board. Shouldn't we be working from a new board goal list? That's my question.
You are welcome to go into goal-setting sessions at any time. The idea is to try to do 2 years at a time. So, and to be ahead of the in this case, to be ahead of the 2023 budget. So trying to be ahead of the 2023 budget, you need to adopt the goals in the summer of 2022, and that's how that plays out.
Okay. And then, I had a question. I understand that we were trying to get some sewer in Coons Addition, and now it's not happening. Can you update us on that? That's been talked about for decades.
It has been talked about for decades, and I would have to go back, but I remember bringing back to this board a discussion about Coons Addition sewer and trying to go forward with a grant from ANRC, and I would have to go back. I think we brought it back to this board for discussion, and there was no direction from the board to go after that grant. Steve, we applied for a number of grants from ANRC. In our discussion with ANRC previously, we didn't feel like there was going to be much support for that project because of the high cost and few houses. There's a member within the city who is a resident who is very supportive of providing sewer to Coons. If the city does it on its own, there are some options there. If you wish, the city could front the money and extend it, and then recoup money slowly as people tie on. But those residents of the Coons Addition aren't city residents; they're not in the city. Another option would be to have the Coons Addition property owners vote in a sewer improvement district, put that on their property taxes. We can bond it and then pay for it, and then they pay it off over time. When they tie on, they wouldn't have a high tie-on fee, and that way the city's not fronting the money for county residents for a sewer system in the county. At the time when it came up, it was anticipated that ANRC was going to have a lot of ARPA money and be available for that. And the idea was looking at a cost for Country Acres Phase 2 and the Coons Addition. There was a lot of discussion at that time about people providing money for Country Acres Phase 2 and didn't ever get it. We did as much research as we could, and we brought it back to the board at that time. And if I remember right, there was no direction from the board to go forward.
I remember we talked about it, but right. I didn't know if we'd ever decided anything.
We had lots of conversations with ANRC, and Steve, out of those 5, we didn't apply, I don't think, did we, for the Coons Addition?
No, we didn't.
Because of the discussion with them that their opinion was high cost and not enough houses getting sewer that we wouldn't. The only positive thing that we would get out of that in their point system was being within the Illinois River watershed. It wasn't going to rate high enough to get points.
Well, the person you were talking about, that was who I had said that it didn't seem like it was going to cost the city anything, but like they were going to fund it or back fund. I don't know, but there was something there, and so I knew we had talked about it. I just didn't know if we'd ever actually made a decision.
There was some grant money available from ANRC for low-income areas, but ANRC looks at it from the standpoint of median family income in the city, and our city median family income is higher than the state median family income, so therefore it wasn't going to meet the grant requirements. Therefore, it was going to be a loan basically, and how do we pay that off on a county subdivision?
Sometimes we talk about stuff and I don't know, did we decide anything or did we, we kind of, that was one thing that I knew we'd discussed. But
There was no
know.
official
Yeah.
vote, but
Okay.
there was no direction by the board to tell
Okay.
staff to move forward on it.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mindy?
Okay. I want to start by thanking Megan for the wonderful work that she has done as well. I've been very pleased with the new format for the report that she did. Not only that, but she did a great job of kind of keeping everybody updated through social media on streets and sanitation and all the things that were impacted during the weather the last couple of weeks. So we're grateful and fortunate to have her with us. I actually brought what Carol referred to, the 2022 year in review, because I wanted to comment on that. I actually heard from someone else, there was a really cool year in review from the city administrator and our utility bills, and I hadn't gotten mine yet, and when I got it, I saw it myself, so I was pleased by that. And like Carol says, there's a lot that happened this last year, so kudos to all of those of you who made it happen. The street department's already been thanked, and the fire and police department for handling everything during the winter storm, but also the sanitation department. I know they had to delay their routes a couple of days, but they worked hard to get all that trash picked up as much as they could anyway. We approved on the consent agenda a new sidewalk on Elgin in front of the north side. And I just want to put a little plug in. I have had a couple of residents that live on Garland between Dogwood and Sherry Whitlock mention that a sidewalk would be helpful there as well at some point, because there are kids who walk down Dogwood, cross over at Garland. They come from the middle school. They cross over at Garland to get to some of those neighborhoods off of Sherry Whitlock and Carl Street. So, and there's not anything there right now. And there is, as you turn going east off of Dogwood, there's a little bit of a hill that makes it a little bit difficult to see if someone's coming from the opposite direction. So just putting a little plug in for that area for future sidewalk. Oh, one more thing going back to Megan and her notifications is I want to encourage anybody that is not signed up for the city notification system to do so. It's a very easy process. On the city's homepage, there's a tab for getting updates, and then you can sign up for the notification system. My understanding is that not a lot are signed up, so we want to encourage that as much as possible, but you can get notifications about sanitation or trash pickup delays or just whatever else is going on in the city. You can get that right to your phone, right to your email. You have a choice as to where you want those messages to go. And finally, I had, I know we approved our new policies for meetings, board meetings. And I had a couple of text and emails afterwards from a couple of the organizations that have contracts with the city for different services, and they were concerned about the new requirement for them to provide their meeting minutes. In fact, one even, I just pulled this up, had concerns. He had reached out to Arkansas municipal officials he had reached out to state officials and was told that the records for that particular organization are protected under 25-1-801 of the handbook for Arkansas municipal officials. I'm not sure if that was the case with all the organizations, but I meant to say something that night. I forgot to. I would ask the board to reconsider that particular policy regarding requiring minutes of meetings from those organizations that we are in contract with. We ask for quarterly reports from 3 of the organizations, but I think there are a couple other organizations that we work with as well, and they have asked that we reconsider that, so I'm putting that out there.
Thank you, Mindy. And Philip, will you look into that and perhaps bring something back to the board next meeting to address that, or do you have some idea about?
Well, I heard from, of the way it was written is that any entity that has a service contract with the city shall provide minutes. Jay and I, the city attorney and I, had a conversation after, and we're not, I'm glad Mindy brought it up. I meant to bring it up. I'm not sure how far that is to go. One could argue that if we have a service contract with Garver Engineering to do engineering at the airport, that they have to provide minutes, if you read it as broad as it's written. However, I assumed it was intended for Chamber, Boys and Girls Club, Main Street, American Legion, and the History Museum. And I heard from two of those organizations that likely they would not provide their minutes. So I heard from Arthur at the Chamber and from the American Legion that their minutes, I believe that's what you were referring to, Director Hunt. So I do think it's something that you need to reconsider, but it's up to the board.
So are you asking for this to be placed on the agenda for consideration tonight? Or are you wanting that to come back?
I think we do have a provision to do that, don't we?
We absolutely do, yes.
So then I just don't have the wording in front of me, so I'm not exactly sure how to make the motion.
Not come back and have this on the actual printed agenda at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir,
and that requires a vote as well, to put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
No.
No,
It
does
could
not.
just be
Okay.
a part of the agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
So if there are no objections, we'll put that on as an amendment to the procedures. Is that, I think two of you can say yes to
believe
that,
that's
and
correct.
I'll do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy.
Mhm.
Ken?
Thank you. Just real quick too, I'm very proud and appreciative of the crews. 10 years ago, well, 18 years ago to 10 years ago when I was on the board the first time, we constantly took pride and told everybody that Siloam's got the best people in town that takes care of us on a daily basis, and that has not changed. So it's good to highlight those that deserve it. This go around has been street crews, fire department, police department, but we do still have a lot of unsung heroes that have to work for Philip every day, and they just don't get enough credit. And don't take that wrong. No, but every department, if there's a need, if there's for whatever reason, everybody's great to work with, and I appreciate that, because that kind of leads into the last thing I wanted to say. And I wasn't even going to say this, but just listening to everybody, I guess that's the benefit of being toward the end. There's so much good going on in this town that I think we could just spend a meeting talking about all the good things. And the only reason that is so is because of the people. We have good people. And it's not that we, don't have our issues, our disagreements, but bottom line is we have got good people that care about this city, that love this city, and always are putting the best foot forward. And that makes your job easier when you go to the corridor and you can snicker at everybody else with the problems they face and say, yeah, we don't have to deal with that because we have got the best people. And that alone deserves a lot of thanks and appreciation. But I just wanted to comment that we say it a lot, but it's true. And it's easy to say, and it's easy for everybody to see. And I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very grateful to be sitting here again working with those people. And I'll stop with that.
Thank you, Ken. Betsy?
I wasn't going to say this, but Director Wiles made me think of something. We went to the Chamber of Commerce banquet, and afterwards my husband said, he's from a big city, it's really nice to be in a room with so many good people in such a really nice town with so many good people. So that was nice coming from a big city boy. So today I toured the police station, and it was very informative. It was a great tour. It helped me to see where our money's going, where the police department is still lacking, and also Chief Gilbert pointed out things where instead of spending $100,000 of city money, he was able to do it for $30,000, and I really appreciate how careful he is with the money. And I know 3 directors have toured the police department, but I'd like to challenge the people who haven't to make an appointment with Chief Gilbert and take a tour of the police station. And I haven't forgotten you, Chief. You're next. But anyway, I think it's really helpful, especially when we're the ones making so many decisions about money and what they get and what they don't. Next, I mentioned in the last meeting the taxi service that the city supplies for elderly and disabled. And what I didn't realize at the time, and then I looked it up, is there is a low income requirement on that, extremely low income. However, that in the next couple weeks, give or take, Mr. Patterson said would change. So it will be available to anybody 65 and over or disabled. And you can call the city at 1811 if you want to use that service. So I think it's an important one out there.
And if I may, it's always been available to those who didn't meet the income requirements. They just paid a slightly higher dollar amount for the service, but we're eliminating everybody's going to pay the same fee, which is basically $1 per ride if you're 65 and older or disabled. Yeah. And just talked to staff after late this afternoon, and I hope to sign that policy before the end of the week.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you. I think it's really important that people know what's available and what's out there, because it's hard for people with special needs and the elderly, and especially before I moved back, trying to help my parents and get things taken care of. So just trying to let everybody know what's available. The last thing, which was something I campaigned about, and I'm not going to let it go. I know the city's working on it, is drainage. That's been an issue, and I feel like because the people who are in charge of drainage and streets and on and on and on, and with all the new construction going up, and that adds to drainage issues, that I would like to see a workshop on that. That's one of the few things I would like to see, possibly hiring outside help to come in and look at those things. And the retention and the detention ponds, I think it's too much with the staff that's available to expect them to keep up with all of that, fix all the drainage issues. When I was campaigning and standing outside holding my little sign, a gentleman stopped by and said, it's a lot better. His house doesn't literally flood every time it rains. He said, and he's like, I'm not complaining, it's so much better. Now I just have to check the weather forecast so I know how often I need to put sandbags out. And he lives like that. Everybody wants money from the city for this and that and on and on. But can you all imagine if that's your house, that's 6 inches of water is in your living room, or if you want to leave your house, you have to put sandbags out? That's crazy to me. And I personally think that needs to become a priority. And like I said, I'd like to see looking at outside help to get caught up on things. And then that would also allow the energy to be put into fixing the streets and other things like that. So I think that's all.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I have asked for a map of the retention and detention ponds. I don't know if you ever forwarded it to the other directors. if maybe, I think that they would find value in that, because I do get a lot of complaints on those, and it allows me to travel to them, and I think it would help all the directors.
I'll be happy to find that map again and forward that out. On a separate note, we have been having discussions, and staff is in the process of, I think, going out to bid to finish the drainage project behind Brentwood. We're never going to finish that project. I'm not happy that when we took it on that we thought we could do it. And I think that's one of the big, as you talk about outside help,
Right.
that we need to finish that, and for us to do it, we're either going to have to stop doing everything else and spend a year doing that, or hire a contractor to do it. We've got other drainage projects that we're going to be contracting out this year. One of them, Director Ressler, is familiar with the drainage ditch that runs from Kenwood on the south side of 412 going, the drainage ditch runs north by the Quality Inn, I believe it is, under 412, and by down along the edge of Dogwood. That needs to be concreted and fixed so that it drains and doesn't clog up. It's an open ditch today. So all of those are intended to be bidded out for that purpose. But we'll be happy to, I don't know if we'll get it in this first quarter, but schedule in the near future a workshop and just walk the board through all the drainage. It's a struggle, and it's you know, the easy solution is just to say make it deeper, but to make it deeper you have to go all the way downstream and or to let it flow, and then we flood somebody downstream.
Right.
So it's not a, there's not an easy answer, and we're dealing with a lot of old designs that were designed many years ago, some good, some not so good. But we'll be happy to try to put that and bring the map, and we'll have a full
Philip,
discussion.
don't you realize we all live downstream?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You do.
Somebody had to say it, didn't they? Somebody had to say it.
Everybody, you know, everybody lives downstream, unless you live at the top of the hill, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's the only person who doesn't have water coming to them. And I believe I probably know the gentleman that you spoke to. We had conversations, if it's the same individual, many times about that, and where and if that house is to flood, or if the street is to flood first. And based on the elevations, the water will overflow the street before it gets into the house. It will likely get in the crawl space first, but not into the floor of the house. But
Right.
thank you for bringing up the map, and we'll
When
get
you
that
do
out.
that, I would like to, one of the compliments that we got is whenever we did the Brentwood before you started, and we had them come in here and we had it, because it gets rid of their anxiety. Can we do that again once we start back up the process on both of them? Because the neighborhood over there behind La Huertas,
Right.
I get tons of calls from them, and I get them from the Brentwood.
Right.
And so if we can re-communicate that, have another little mini meeting like we did.
Well, I think it would be appropriate when we,
Get a
or
contractor.
at least before we bring the contract to the board or something, but I got to get to that point first. So
Right.
get the bid out there and get the bids, and then see what that is. But before we do that, once we get the bids out there and we get ready, then having another neighborhood meeting, I'm more than happy to do that, yes.
And the gentleman wasn't complaining. He was very grateful for what had been done up to that point. Now I'm making it a little bit longer. Before I moved here, I lived in the county outside of Kansas City, and a subdivision was built next to me. We had 4 acres, and it was perfect until the subdivision was built, and they had their detention ponds, they had all of that. But what happened was my yard started to flood, and you're talking probably 3 acres in the front. It looked like a lake, and of course it was nobody's fault. And so I've been through this, and it was slowly creeping up closer to the house. And they said, but we have retention and detention ponds, and it's all fine. No, it's not. And so I want to make sure that our retention and detention ponds are working properly. But if they're not doing the job, we need to find something else that will. And it's in no way am I putting down the city staff that they haven't done all this and already have it taken care of. I think it's too much. It's too much to expect them to fix all the drainage issues, the streets, the on and on and on, which is why I think, the contracting out for that stuff is a great idea.
One of the other things that we talked about, if I may, internally, and then, we shifted primary city engineers in the middle of this conversation, so we had to pick it back up again. But engineering design, drainage designs are based on historical data of rainfall, and it's old history, right? 100-year rainfall, 100-year floods, and we're seeing rainfalls that blow that historical data out of the water. Sorry for the pun, but we internally have had some discussions that we may just need to start saying that instead of designing things to a 100-year flood, we've got to go to a 125-year flood and make it bigger and hold more water, even though the engineering manuals that everybody uses across the United States don't say that today because of the, we've not seen, I can't say that, we've never seen a certain amount of rainfall in history, but this constant huge amounts of rainfall that we're seeing these days are overtaxing our drainage system. And it's not just Siloam Springs, it's every city in northwest Arkansas for that matter. But we've got to, we've had those discussions of we just need to maybe say we got to take another step and let the international engineering sort of stuff catch up with us at a later date. So that's another thing we're internally having lots of discussions about.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, then I would ask, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yeah. Motion is approved. We are adjourned.